Welcome to Impacting Jamaica, where we spotlight the many but often ignored positive happenings, activities, projects, and investments at every level across every sector to inspire, motivate, and excite people everywhere. Impacting Jamaica is powered by the Flow Foundation.
Welcome to Impacting Jamaica. I'm Tamika Gordon. I'm speaking with Joseph Johnson, agronomist and local representative for the Trees That Feed Foundation. He's also a researcher and avid cultivator who has also served as Chief Plant Propagation Specialist within the Ministry of Agriculture. We are speaking today about using some of Jamaica's natural assets or fruits to help to improve the country's food security. Thank you for joining Impacting Jamaica, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much, Tamika, for having me. It's my pleasure.
Great, good to have you. Let's begin by talking a little bit about how you became an agronomist. How did you get on such a path?
It's very interesting. I got into agronomy by entering into the Jamaica School of Agriculture in 1974. There we were exposed to all the avenues of agriculture. But along life's road, as I graduated from the School of Agriculture, I went into working at Vere Technical High School, where I took up a great post in their agronomy department to include plant propagation. And that has led me on in this field of agronomy.
Interesting. How long were you at Vere Tech?
I just started there for 1 year and a half, but it was quite interesting, very meaningful and profitable.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would have done if you hadn't chosen agronomy?
Sure. At times, from high school at Cornwall College, the thought of doing medicine came straight up front. But as the different challenges occur and agriculture opened the door, I got in there with the hope of doing veterinary medicine, but that also fizzled out for my great love for agronomy in the last section.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit now about your work. You have worked on a number of projects, including a new way of grafting so that original roots will produce better plants with a focus on several fruits or several produce that we have here in Jamaica. Can you give me an update on this project?
Sure. Over my 40 years of working in agriculture, I was gifted to look at groundbreaking avenues of producing plants. My first lead into that went into when I went to Grenada. I was sent by the ministry to look at the grafting of nutmeg, because quickly for you would know that nutmeg carries male and female and separate plants. And so if you are able to choose female over male to a greater percentage, that would assist in a greater production of fruits. So I went to look at grafting nutmeg and I looked at the system. But when I returned to Jamaica, unfortunately the Ministry of Agriculture was not in a position to put all the necessary stuff in place to get that program going. So while I was posted at Bodles, I decided to use the knowledge into a very good area which I saw fit. So I looked at grafting of ackee, because as you know, the ackee market was just opening up and it's very good. And we needed the cheese or the hard ackee over the butter or the soft one. And we needed that for the export, because to can it, it's better to can the hard one. So I looked at selecting hard trees with hard fruit, and to do what I call a micro grafting of ackee, done at 6 weeks old, grafting, and within 2 to 3 months, we were able to push that out in the field very successfully. All that information is left at the Bodles Research Station, and they are in a position to continue that work as best as possible. I also looked at another serious area, which was the grafting of pimento. Pimento, as you know, is usually done by what they call approach grafting, which is very tedious, labor consuming and would be much more costly than the method I looked at. I looked at the method of grafting the plant in the plant nursery, and that also showed some promise, but resources from government was not put into it that much, so that is now shared. But I think I've seen where, since I have retired, ACDI Voca is doing a push on pimento in Jamaica. So I'm hoping that they will realize that that method is possible and to do some work with it.
What does all of that mean, though, for Jamaica's economic development and to leverage these crops as exports?
It means quite a lot, because especially pimento, the pimento in the world, our pimento produced in Jamaica is, we can really say, the top in the world. So if we are able to harness this method of propagation for pimento, plant out back acreages of pimento, which we are very much lagging behind. For example, in St. Ann, Manchester, etc. There used to be St. Elizabeth, huge amount of plantings of pimento. So if we look at that, we could increase our export to the world very, 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 very high. And also for ackee, right now, the call is out for production of ackee as for the export market. So, and we know the amount of foreign exchange that could bring in, because our diaspora people in North America, England, etc., they always crave our local products.
So we know that ackee is an export crop because we send canned ackee all over the world, yeah? But let's backtrack a bit and explain for us how the work that you have done would have facilitated the rapid production of the fruit, so that we were able to tap that kind of a market. Because I'm not sure that everybody would understand what grafting is and how it impacts the productivity of the plant, so to get it fruiting.
Well, grafting, quickly for everybody, is the use of a small portion of a tree that has borne fruit that you like, you know is what you want, and you take it and you put it onto a rootstock. That is, the rootstock is a young plant that is grown from the seed of the ackee. And once you do that, you could cut down your bearing time. You could almost cut your bearing time by almost half when you use seeds. So that would be able to help us to establish orchards much more faster and in a truer format, because once you've planted a grafted plant, you will now realize that that's what you want and that's what you'll get. So it would impact our establishment of orchards. Yes, we can use seed, and if we use seedlings, as plants grow from seed, you would take another 2 years or so more than if you had grafted, and to be certain. So that's the situation for ackee. And
what's the normal time that if you plant an ackee tree from a seed versus if you do the grafting, how much of a difference?
Well, we've seen from seed you would be looking under normal conditions, having irrigation, etc., as 2 to 3 years or 3 to 4 years. If you are able to graft by the first a year and a half, you can start seeing production on your tree once you get the good growing conditions for it. So you're literally cutting down yourself by at least a year or a year and a half sometimes.
Improving your ability, or improving the country's ability to bring foods to market and therefore tap export opportunities.
Right, and to give you a more manageable tree also, because a grafted tree would be easier to manage, easier to prune at a regular height and give you your fruit. So we could step up our productivity in a shorter time.
Tell me about pimento, because you mentioned some areas of Jamaica where we once grew pimento, and not many people would know that. How much of an industry do you recall that we had, And what are the possibilities that you think we now have that we need to move to leverage?
Well, we had a great possibility because in the 50s and 60s, Pimento was a top producer, albeit it wasn't really structured in orchard farm. It was just growing on lands that people had. We had a very strong export market up into Britain, especially the ships would take dried pimento there because it's known as allspice and it's used for different purposes when it gets there. But a lot of people, back in the day, it was like St. Anne, Manchester, St. Elizabeth, some parts of Trelawney. And that was, pimento back then was one of the schooling aids for people, children. They would wait on the pimento crop to be able to produce funds in the summer, and then they'll have it to start back to school, etc. But with various ravages, I think one of them that had a very rough attack of a black ants, and then now there were, just general malaise and the harvesting of the trees wantonly for jerk pork, for use with the jerk pork production area. But now, if we are able to
So you mean they cut down the pimento trees to use them as pimento wood?
Yes,
so that set us back.
Yeah, that set us back because both for coal burning and jerk, and that should have been arrested long ago, but it was not arrested. So, our productivity in pimento has fallen off real badly. As I said before, I think ACDI VOCA, which is now headed by Dr. Blake, has a push.
What is that? Can you just briefly tell us what that entity is or what it does?
I don't know too much about it, but I know it's an organization that is supported from outside of the country, funding from outside of the country, and they usually assist in different projects. For example, reef, they had a project I think called From Ridge to Reef, that's from up in the mountain down to the sea, and they would want to, revitalize the vegetation and the whole environmental situation. And so I think I've seen call now for them looking at pimento as one of the crops.
So you were saying that we should have arrested the situation with regards to the chopping down of pimento trees because it would have profited us as a country to look at it as an orchard crop or as an export crop.
Yes, we should have, and really and truly, Jamaica is kicking its heel into its face a lot of time because, for example, over in the Portmore area now, where one housing estate is located, that used to be one of the only grafted pimento orchards where you could get, because you need mother plants, because even now we're going to graft, you need mother plants that is good bearing trees, proven that you can take budwood from. And over there in Lawrenceville was one of the areas that is gone. It was Lawrenceville, right where Lawrenceville was one of the pimento areas. Right now,
it has been converted to lots for housing now.
Yes, right. No, I still maintain one or two plants in Trelawney that was from the strong growing and producing trees. I have a plant at home which is one of the first. I think it is the first plant that was nursery grafted. Because if you read up material in like even India, those larger producing areas, they're not onto nursery grafting. They don't have the whole setup behind it, and we can do it in Jamaica.
We have been doing it, and we did it in the past.
Right, so we can do it.
What about other fruits such as avocado and June plum?
Well,
you see those factoring in terms of export and leveraging low hanging fruits.
Export and moving us forward, and even for health purpose, because the Ministry Health and Wellness will tell you that fruit juices. They know at school they'll tell you there's a water day, there's a juice day, and for example, June plum, the smaller version, the one we call the dwarf June plum, we can produce that rapidly and get trees coming into bearing. I think in 9 to 12 months, and we can do that. The thing about it, the fruits are small, but it's very good for processing. That's what a lot of people don't understand. It's not the big one that we sell at school gate. is for processing. You use the juice, the small ones can produce a lot of fruits, and you can use that for processing. So if we are able to bottle our juices and do it, that would help both our health, and we can look at even outside marketing for like June plum. But avocado
You mean as a
stands
fresh
tall
fruit? To export it as a fresh
no,
fruit?
no, not as a fresh fruit, as a
Okay.
processed juice.
Okay.
We wouldn't go fresh fruit for that. We'd look for the juices, the value added. We go value
Okay.
added, create juice. It can blend, June plum can be blended with a lot of stuff. Ginger, which is one of Jamaica, used to be one of Jamaica
Top producing.
products too. Yeah, and we could do that, but we haven't put the push behind it. And so where you could find a quick 5 acres of dwarf June plum set out that could go into production when Mr. Maglashan was CTD and a director at Bodles, we did a lot of work on getting that out in the field. We gave farmers half, Don Maglashan, yeah, we gave farmers half acres, some little half-acre plots with irrigation and all the rest that we could do, but they killed it, not farmers, but the system, because everybody jump up and say the June plum is not sweet and it can't, but it's good for processing. So what the ministry should have done at that point in time, which I said to Minister Clark, just go to the home ec department Twickenham Park where they're producing Bami. Ask them to look at converting stuff into juice, and we could look at it. But that didn't take on, because in Jamaica, it's sometimes hard to hit the directorate to get things in place. And even though even though avocado, as you said, is one of the top, it has top potentials. One of our good avocado here is the Simmons variety. And if you go to Florida or anywhere that's nearby, because we can export to Canada quite easily. USA takes our avocado without any fight still, and Britain, it can go there. And we can produce 5 acre blocks of avocado. The only telling situation is that you probably need a little year of good rainfall if you don't have your own irrigation. And that is changing a bit in Jamaica. But it's a very hardy tree and can manage, and we can produce. Enough.
So you have highlighted for us, Mr. Johnson, several areas that members of the diaspora who would want to come back and have some form of investment going can look to tap, and the research is already there. If somebody abroad were to say, okay, my mother died and left me a plot of land, or I own a plot of land, let's not kill off anybody. I have an acre of land and I want to do something with it, and I want to access the research and the information that is there. What's the mechanism? What's the system like for them to tap into that?
Well, I have been having discussions. Yes, I have been having discussions with people who are interested in doing stuff, because what I'll say to them, they come, even I think by Wednesday next I have a consultation with a young fellow who is in Jamaica that wants to do orchard, wants to go into orchard. We look at factors. We look at factors that will mitigate against you and factors that will benefit you. Now, I know you might want to ask what are some of the problems that might holding us back, the biggest obstacles and so holding us back.
Yeah, that was my last question. But let's wrap up how an investor would access this information. Let us see if we can point them in the direction that they should go.
So the investor there is the Agro Invest Corporation in Jamaica. They control the bulk of arable lands that still belongs to the government that can go on lease. So that would be one of the first point of contact. But if they have their own private land, then they could speak to rather as a fruit tree crop expert, because I used to be in that division too, rather as a fruit tree crop expert, that's Mr. Loxley Waits. If they get on to him, he could guide them also along the lines. And then personally, I am available I am available.
But what of the
for
body of
consultation.
research that you did on June plum, and because somebody who is looking to invest would want access to that information, knowledge is key and knowledge is power. How accessible is that body of research that you did? Is it something somewhere in out there in Google that you could just research and easily get it, or do they have to go through some form of an entity to access the research?
Well, I'm not sure how much of it on Google. I know we had produced a book, Fruit Tree Crop in Jamaica, and that book was done by FAO, and the material for it would be available somewhere along the line. But as I said, rather still as a fruit tree crop specialist in-house, which is Mr. Loxley Waits. So, he could be contacted. And as I said, further on, they could contact me if want. And we know other persons like Dr. Joseph Lindsay. We are always available in a group where we could point persons to
As resource
to the
persons.
best practices, right? As resource persons and the best practice.
Yes, you touched on one of the other questions that we had. We need to talk about. What has been Jamaica's biggest obstacle in really seizing some of these export opportunities in agriculture, and thereby propel our nation forward? What are we not doing?
Well, one of the things we're not doing right now is that we need a few more agronomists. Like myself, I am retired, but we need active agronomists right now who can point the persons to, because a lot of investors don't have agronomical skills. They have financial situation that they want to invest and turn into that. So one of the obstacles is that we need more agronomists. But other one is also, apart from land and the good lands going out, we need irrigation. And our ministries need to start looking at preparing and having irrigation available for farmers. You can't give them land without irrigation now, because even in the sugar lands that they're giving out in, say, in Trelawney, the Long Pond lands, there's no irrigation there. And so a lot of people will fail. So one of the biggest obstacles right now to orchard production is irrigation. And they have to put that in place one way or the other, right? So that will be the main driver for things right now, Ms. Garden.
Overall, are there, so we've talked about the policy, well, those are policy directives or directions that we need to take with respect to putting in irrigation and in stuff like that, but it's also open for private sector investment, don't you think?
Yes, it is, because yes, it's open for private sector investment, and to look at, even the supply of irrigation material. We have Jamaica Drip is fairly good so far now, but we have to look at different. The National Irrigation Commission needs to look deeper, into trying to reach the needs of all farmers now for irrigation, both those who are on government lands and those who are on private lands. So we need to look at that.
Mr. Johnson, let's talk about your role now in the Trees That Feed Foundation. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yes, thank you very much. Trees That Feed, quickly for you, as you know, they started quite a few years ago. It's almost close to 15 years now, 12, 15 years. And they, the founder, Mary, had a dream of feeding the world with one crop, and that was breadfruit. And because most of you know, one breadfruit tree can feed a family for life. And because it can live up to 50 years. And we know that you can have breadfruit in roasted, fried, all the manners. But Trees That Feed look more at making an entrepreneur from breadfruit. So in Jamaica, we started by importing a few other varieties, one called Mafala, which is a very small fruit but very good to go into the processing market. Then we looked at the mass propagation of Yellow Heart, which we have a very good nursery out in Portland that is doing the production and the supply for us for seedlings. So it's an organization that people, you can write into them on the on the Google platform, request trees, and based on the availability of the funding, etc., they will award you trees. And we have about 3 nurseries in Jamaica which are supported by the organization. Myself is one on the Denby Showground. And there's one in Portland, there's one in St. Elizabeth that you can go to along with the forestry departments, and you can cash in your certificate that is given to you. But we want to talk a little more about breadfruit on it, because breadfruit is 1/3 of what we do now. It's the main push. And breadfruit flower, strange, a lot of people in Jamaica might not even have heard about breadfruit flower. But breadfruit flower right now, we have sitting down in Puerto Rico, US, market for thousands of pounds of breadfruit flower. We have about 2 or 3 processors in Jamaica doing different aspects of breadfruit. One is capable of doing pounds and pounds of flour for the export market. Then there is a breadfruit buller. There's a young lady in Kitson Town that is now producing breadfruit flour. We from Trees That Feed, we are donating 400 bullers per month to the new school out by Osemati called Crystal House. Is an American supported school, and we're donating that, the bullers, free to the students.
Made from breadfruit flour.
Right, from breadfruit flour. That's why we call it breadfruit buller, and it's well received. But there's also chips. There's a lovely chips being produced by, I think, a guy lives in the US or Jamaica, and he produces it here in Jamaica and sells it in the US, takes all out to the US. And so breadfruit has a very, very, very good potential. But what we need for breadfruit in Jamaica, we need orchards. A lot of our breadfruit are on old lands, over in the gully, over in the hills. We need good irrigated land. So it's one of the crops somebody returning residents.
Another investment opportunity.
Another investment opportunity lies there. If we can find irrigated lands to put breadfruit under, so we can prune, clip, keep our trees to manageable heights. We don't want the 30, 40 feet trees that we used to, where the roasting one is up the top and you have to jerk it down. We need that. So if you look at A, B, and M, because mango is also the other push, but Trees That Feed is here to support you, and we give thanks to Mike and Mary McLaughlin. And always, they can be contacted online at Trees That Feed Foundation, and you will see how that goes. But we didn't talk about mango that's under the AIC and the government projects too. The country is looking at pushing mango, because we're now free to get into the United States once we go to certain little...
And we had a lot of challenges getting our mangoes into the United States, didn't we?
Right.
Yes. So we've overcome that now.
We've overcome that now. So what we need now is the production and the productivity of high quality, because the people line up in the US for the Julia and the East Indian. The line wiggles around just like you would see it at Western.
I was in Canada recently, and mangoes were being sold for, I think, between $8 to $10 a pound.
All right. And Canada,
and they didn't taste as lovely as ours.
Right. And they have no restriction, so we can sell all our mangoes there. So we need Jamaica as potential opportunities and everything for export crops, and that's in fruit tree crops, because you will know that your fruit tree will live for years and years. It's not like your veg crops every season, every cycle you have to replant, and right, you have to replant. So
what species of mangoes or what types of mangoes are we looking to export?
St. Julian and East Indian. Those are what the diaspora market has grown up on, and it loves it. But for myself, at my nursery, I produce other, what I tend to call, quote unquote, exotic hybrids, right? I have always grown, because I have a finger right now on over 16 to 18 different mango varieties that, once I call the name, only thing you can do is Google it, because you might never have seen it. But there are mangoes like Namdapmai, Tringram, Lancetilia, mangoes like those. But anybody can always contact me and we can discuss
And those
it
are
and talk
mangoes
about it.
that you would have researched or developed. Tell me about how you got those.
No, those would be varieties that have been developed overseas over time, research developed. And what we have done is bring it to Jamaica and probably get it grow out a bit so we can understand. But we use most of the information from the development overseas to push those varieties here. So a lot of people don't use to them yet. But it's a work in progress. There is one and two, for example, a variety called Namdak Mai, which in Cayman Island is very popular. So all Jamaicans who go to Cayman, taste it and come back to Jamaica, want it here now. And we are gradually getting onto the mango scene. But the Julie and the East Indian will be the orchards for export right now. They will
Which
be
ones
the
are good for
orchards.
the value added, for the concentrates and the juices?
Well, that's the difference because in Jamaica, for the making the juice and so, a very good one is a common mango, but we allow it to fall and drop and go away. Common mango, and there is the common mango is very good at that. And number 11, those, but we wouldn't put those in orchards here. That's the situation because our value added market is not so big. So that's why you're not getting those going in there. But I think what we should really do, as we say, see if we can lock in the fresh fruit export first, and at the same time we will get rejects from the Julie, the East Indian, and we could experiment with making
those.
some juices with that or drying. Because I didn't tell you about trees that feed they have developed a solar dryer, which is very efficient. Right now I have a small one in my backyard, so I dry my lemongrass, soursop leaf. You can dry almost anything you want. You can dry it in there and preserve it. I heard Mary talking about in Africa where they work, drying mushrooms and all the rest. So
we need to come and get one of
that's what
those.
we need. Right. We have given out that trees that feed. There is a very active one in St. Elizabeth, manned by Miss Wilson, Janelle Wilson, and we have at the Sydney Pagan School. There is set of dryers there, and the Ray Neville Foundation has set up a processing plant in St. Elizabeth, and Trees That Feed had donated the prototype dryers to them, and they built some too. So Jamaica, as I know you probably have eaten dried mango.
Yes,
right?
abroad though.
And so, yeah, right abroad. And there is the potential for it here. We have a variety called kit, which does very well once it is dried and produced with a little
Repeat the
sugar
name
or
of that
whatever.
variety.
Kit, Keitt.
Okay.
That's yeah. So
That does well
that
as a
can go in
dried fruit,
outside.
dried mangoes.
Yeah, right. You can put that in. So if you're even doing a Julie East Indian as your export, you can fringe 2 rows or 3 rows of that. It's a later variety, and you can go into drying. We can gradually turn ourselves into a semi-processing company apart from fresh fruits, because right now too many common mango drop and waste each year. I mean, for me, it does not waste because I have to collect them to make seeds. But I still think I would get enough to make seeds plus, because when it goes to the processing plant, the seeds would come back to me. Because right now, we can collect ackee seeds from the ackee factory. Once it is processed, it come back. So that's an integrated system goes into play, right?
Yes. Yes. Mr. Johnson, you have given us a wealth of information and several pointers in terms of investment opportunities for members of the diaspora and even locals here who want to tap into, making some money using our Jamaican assets, our food and our fruits, which we are known world over for. Thank you so much for being a guest on Impacting Jamaica. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
It was my pleasure to respond.
Impacting Jamaica is powered by the Flow Foundation. If you or anyone you know is involved with projects and activities that excite, motivate, and encourage, email us at impactingjamaica@gmail.com. That's all one word, impactingjamaica@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.